and a very good evening, viewers. You're watching the news on Sansad Television live at 9 p.m. and I'm Rashika. We get you news from across the nation and the world, but first up, the headlines of the day. Government approved sale of chana to states, union territories at discounted rate for welfare schemes. Hike ceiling for purchases of tur, urad and masoor pulses to 40%. India presents nationally determined contributions document to UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. At G20 meet, India is Earth's country not a traditional carbon emitter but ready to partner in solutions. GDP grows at 13.5% in the first quarter of current fiscal. 8 core sectors slow down in July, show growth of 4.5%. Mikhail Gorbachev, last president of erstwhile Soviet Union, dies at the age of 91. Ganesh Chaturthi celebrated across the country. President, Vice President and Prime Minister greet people on the occasion. Now, a quick look at some important news of the day. Home Minister Amit Shah to launch Central Armed Police Forces e-Awas web portal in New Delhi on Thursday. Government issues strict guidelines to check misleading surrogate or indirect advertisements and endorsements. Intermodal station in Katra will improve travelling experience of pilgrims visiting Mata Vaishno Devi temple, says Union Minister Nitin Gadkari. Over 15,705 crore grant released to rural local bodies in 2022-23, says Finance Ministry. DPIIT develops user interactive dashboard for industry bodies to raise issues. World Bank praises India's approach to stimulate production during COVID pandemic. US Army grounds Chinook helicopter fleet over issues of engine fires. Indian Air Force to continue Chinook operation, 6 details from Boeing. Congress interim President Sonia Gandhi's mother, Paola Maino, passed away at her home in Italy. Supporters of Shia leader Muqtada Sadr withdraw from Baghdad's high-security green zone after clashes. US Justice Department says efforts made to block its probe into confidential documents found at former President Trump's residence. Now, news in detail. The Union Cabinet has approved disposal of chana pulses to states and union territories at discounted rates for various welfare schemes. The disposal will be done from the stock of pulses procured under Price Support Scheme and Price Stabilization Fund. It also raised the procurement ceiling for tur, urad and masoor under the PSS scheme from the existing 25 to 40%. The states and union territories have been offered to lift 15 lakh metric ton of chana dal at the discount of rupees 8 per kilogram over the issue price of the sourcing state on first-come, first-served basis. The states and union territories will utilize these pulses in schemes like midday meal, public distribution system and integrated child development programs. The government will spend rupees 1,200 crore for the implementation of the scheme. India is showing intent as a problem solver for the climate crisis, despite not being a traditional contributor to global emissions. Union Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav said while addressing the opening ceremony of the G20 Environmental and Climate Ministerial meeting in Bali. Yadav said the current pace and scale of climate finance from developed countries is not matching the global aspirations to combat climate change. He also said that the poorest countries and most vulnerable communities have contributed the least to the climate crisis but are bearing its maximum impact.
There is an urgent need to mobilize resources to stimulate the economy in a manner that makes it more resilient and sustainable. But the current pace and scale of climate finance from developed countries is not matching the global aspiration to combat climate change. Collectively, work is needed toward turning ambition into action in accordance with the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities.
G20 environment ministers converged on the resort island of Bali on Wednesday for climate talks, where summit host and current G20 chair Indonesia warned that countries must jointly arrest global warming or see the planet pushed to a point where no future will be sustainable. Here is a detailed report.
Environment officials from the group of 20 leading rich and developing nations are in Indonesia's resort island of Bali for talks to spur global climate action and other troubles that have worsened due to the war in Ukraine. The meeting is expected to produce a joint agreement with three priority issues: sustainable recovery, land-based and ocean-based climate action, as well as resource mobilization to realizing the Paris Agreement, the first universal and legally binding commitment on climate change. Indonesian Environment Minister Siti Nurbaya opened the meeting on Wednesday by urging fellow environment ministers to safeguard environmental multilateralism. Indonesia, the holder of this year's G20 presidency, ratified the Paris Agreement in law in 2016. The country is committed by reducing emissions by 41% with international assistance by 2030 or by 29% independently as stipulated in its NDC. The United States Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, is among 17 environment ministers and climate officials, in addition to over 200 delegates who are attending the talks in person. Top officials from China, Russia and Argentina joined the meeting virtually. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
India has submitted its updated nationally determined contribution under the Paris Agreement to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. India has emphasized that it is a step forward towards its long-term goal of reaching net zero by 2070. Union Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav said India's NDC does not bind it to any sector-specific mitigation action or obligation. In other news, political crisis in Jharkhand continues as 32 MLAs of the ruling JMM Congress RJD alliance flew to Raipur on a private plane. The MLAs are staying at the Mayfair Golf Resort in Raipur in Chhattisgarh, which has turned into a fortress with police personnel deployed. The move comes after the Election Commission sent its opinion to the Jharkhand Governor Ramesh Bais, seeking the disqualification of Chief Minister Hemant Soren as an MLA. The Jharkhand government has claimed support of 50 MLAs, which include 30 from JMM, 18 from Congress, 1 from RJD and 1 from CPI-ML. The main opposition, BJP, has 26 MLAs in the House. The Jharkhand Assembly has 81 members. Meanwhile, the Jharkhand Assembly Speaker Rabindranath Mehato has concluded anti-defection proceedings related to opposition BJP leader and former Chief Minister Babulal Marandi and reserved the judgment. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla concluded his visit to Suriname today. Birla expressed hope that it will boost parliamentary cooperation, trade, economic and cultural relations between the two friendly nations. Addressing the members of the Suriname National Assembly, Om Birla shared India's growth story during the last 75 years. During the visit, Lok Sabha Secretariat and National Assembly of Suriname signed an MOU for cooperation in exchange of information and improved access to parliamentary archives and documents. Om Birla said that Lok Sabha will help Suriname National Assembly to set up a digitized archival library system. He also said that India and Suriname should increase cooperation in the IPU. He met with a group of ministers led by Suriname's Foreign Minister Albert Ramdane. The two leaders shared views on regional and global issues. Birla reaffirmed India's commitment as a dependable friend and reliable partner of Suriname. Now let's take a look at news from across the nation. The PI poll to fill the Rajya Sabha seat vacated by BJP's Manik Saha after being made Chief Minister of Tripura will be held on September 22nd, the Election Commission said today. The government has removed the airfare caps on domestic flights from today. With this, airlines will now have the flexibility to regulate their fares for passengers. Fare caps have been removed after almost 2 years. The Customs Department will begin a standardized risk-based faceless assessment system across the country for clearance of imported consignments in phases starting with metal from September 5. This would promote ease of doing business. Government expects rice procurement of 518 lakh tons in Kharif season despite output worries. MSP of common grade paddy fixed at rupees 2,040 per quintal and grade A paddy at rupees 2,060 per quintal for the year 2022-23 marketing. With the swearing in of 9 new judges on Wednesday, the active strength of judiciary at the Calcutta High Court rose to 54, the highest in several decades. The High Court at Calcutta, the oldest in the country, has a sanctioned strength of 72 judges. A special court today extended the judicial custody of former West Bengal Minister Partha Chatterjee and Arpita Mukherjee till 14 September in connection with the SSE scam case. India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has crossed 212 crore 37 lakh mark. The number of patients under treatment for corona in the country has come down to 64,667. Now news from the world of business. India's economy grew 13.5% in the April-June quarter from a year ago, its fastest annual expansion in a year. India's GDP in the 3 months till 30th June was higher than a year earlier compared to 4.1% in the January to March quarter. However, this is lower than the predicted by economists and the Reserve Bank of India. India's 8 core sectors included coal, refinery products, electricity, fertilizers, cement and steel grew 4.5% in July, slowing from an upwardly revised 13.2% in June. Geopolitical repercussions of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and a looming slowdown in Western markets have adversely impacted the economy. Flood-ravaged Pakistan received a massive 1.1 billion aid from the International Monetary Fund after it revived the stalled $7 billion assistance package to help avert a default. Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said this was a major step forward in putting Pakistan's falling economy back to track. Equity and currency markets in India were shut on Ganesh Chaturthi. Trading will resume in Thursday's session. BSE and NSE indices had registered gains of 2.5% on Tuesday, driven by powerful performance of the banking, IT and energy sector. All 30 stocks in the Sensex pack had closed higher. It was a mixed bag for global markets as American and European indices traded in the red, with losses of 1 to 2%. In Asia, Hang Seng, Taiwan and Kospi performed well with gains of 1%. Shanghai and Nikkei 225 were below par with losses of 1%. Moving on, the festival of Ganesh Chaturthi is being celebrated across the country with faith and devotion. This day is celebrated to mark the birth of Lord Ganesha, the god of wisdom, happiness and prosperity. President, Vice President and Prime Minister wished the people on the occasion. The festival holds significance in Maharashtra, where people from every section of the society celebrate it with fervour. During the 10-day-long festival, devotees welcome idols of Lord Ganesha into their homes. At many places, pandals are also set up to celebrate Ganesh Utsav. For the past 2 years, the festival had to be celebrated amid COVID-19 restrictions. Now time for a short break here. On the other side, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says his country is well prepared to tackle a possible energy shortage after the Russian squeeze on European gas supplies.
पुलिस सुधार को लेकर बीते दशकों में कई आयोग बनाए गए। अगर पुलिस को मिलेनियल पुलिस बनना है तो उसके लिए ज़रूरी है कि एआई और मशीन लर्निंग को अपने में आत्मसात करें।
स्मार्ट पुलिसिंग तभी होगी जब हम लोग टेक्नोलॉजी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को इम्प्रूव करेंगे, ताकि हमारी क्वालिटी ऑफ इन्वेस्टिगेशन, रेट ऑफ कन्विक्शन, ये सब बढ़ेगी।
जो इनपुट इस समय पुलिस में आ रहा है लोगों का, वो अच्छे ग्रेजुएट लड़के हैं, तेज हैं, अच्छी टेक्नोलॉजी की समझ रखते हैं।
Welcome back to the news. Now time for big developments from Russia-Ukraine war front. A team of IAEA nuclear inspectors arrived in the southern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia ahead of a visit to a Russia-held nuclear power plant. Both Russia and Ukraine have been trading blame over continuous shelling at the nuclear plant for weeks now. The mission's progress is being watched across the world as it aims to help prevent a nuclear disaster.
A team of International Atomic Energy Agency set off for Ukraine's Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, even as shelling continues in the nearby areas. It is for the first time that a team of the UN nuclear inspectors is visiting a war zone, carrying the hopes of the world to help secure the nuclear facility caught in the middle of the war and prevent a nuclear catastrophe.
You know, these operations are very complex operations. We are going to a war zone. We are going to occupy territory, and this requires the explicit guarantees from not only from the Russian Federation, also from the Republic of Ukraine, and we have been able to secure that.
Grossi also said that he hoped to establish a permanent mission in Ukraine to monitor the nuclear plant. Russian installed officials in the area suggested the visit might last only one day, while IAEA and Ukrainian officials suggested it would last longer.
Any conclusions, everything they could see could be implemented after the occupation of the station, demilitarization of the station. So, and that is the main task. So we think that the mission should be a very important step to return to Ukrainian government control the NPT.
Russia captured the nuclear plant in early March. Since then, it has been occupied by Russian forces and operated by Ukrainian workers. For weeks now, Ukraine and Russia have accused each other of endangering the plant's safety with artillery or drone strikes. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Now highlights from the Ukraine-Russia war zone. Ukrainian emergency service personnel in Dnipro conducted training in case of a nuclear disaster. The training took place amid concerns over a potential radiation leak from the Russian-controlled Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. The training focused on evacuation of people and drills including the use of special equipment, radiation and chemical level control devices. Russia has halted gas deliveries to Germany and the rest of Europe via Nord Stream 1 between August 31 and September 3rd. Russia's state-owned energy firm Gazprom said the deliveries are being stopped for maintenance work. Germany, which is heavily dependent on Russian gas, has been accusing Moscow of using energy as a weapon. France has also slammed Russia for cutting off gas supplies. Ukrainian troops have attacked Russian positions along the entire front. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said. The UK said that Ukrainian formations in the south had pushed Russian front-line forces back some distance in places. The British Defence Ministry said that Ukrainian armoured forces continue to assault Russian forces on several axes across the south of the country since Monday. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba has called on the European Union to ban Russian tourists. He said a visa ban would be appropriate response to Russia's genocidal war of aggression supported by an overwhelming majority of Russian citizens. He also said that time for half measures is now gone. Now time for our global updates. Four people have been selected for Ramon Magsaysay Awards for 2022. They include Cambodian psychiatrist Sophia Shim, who helped Cambodians recover from the genocide trauma of the Khmer Rouge regime, and Japanese ophthalmologist Tadashi Hattori, who has treated thousands of Vietnamese villagers. The other two awardees are Philippine pediatrician Bernadette Madrid, who helped thousands of abused children and their families with medical, legal and social support, and French environmental activist Gary Benchegade, who tried to clean up plastic pollution in Indonesian rivers. The awards will be presented on 30th November in Manila. The US announced $30 million in humanitarian aid to flooded Pakistan. US Foreign Secretary Antony Blinken said his country is with Pakistan in this difficult time. The US is providing funds through US aid for critical humanitarian aid like food, safe drinking water and shelter. 3.3 crore people have been affected by floods. Over 1,100 people have lost their lives while 1,600 people are injured. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has said that his country is well prepared to tackle a possible energy shortage in the coming months due to Russia's squeeze on European gas supplies. He said the impacts of Russia's invasion of Ukraine on the energy supply in Europe will be the focus of his government's two-day retreat that Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez will also take part in.
Germany in recent months has reactivated oil and coal-fired power plants, leased 4 floating terminals for importing liquefied natural gas, and required the country's gas storage operators to fill their facilities to capacity ahead of the winter months. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said gas storage facilities are already over 80% full, more than they were at this time last year. At the same time, Germany is considering extending the operating life of its 3 remaining nuclear power plants beyond the power plant shutdown date at the end of this year. A decision on that is expected soon. Scholz told reporters that all measures have contributed to Germany being in a much better situation as far as supply security is concerned than could have been foreseen a couple of months ago. The government is expected to agree a further package of measures in the coming days to help German consumers cope with steeply rising energy prices and high inflation. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Now a look at the global stories of the day. NASA will try again on Saturday to launch its new moon rocket on a test flight after engine trouble halted the first countdown this week. Managers said on Tuesday that they are changing fueling procedures to deal with the issue. A bad sensor also could be to blame for Monday's scrap launch, they noted. The 322-foot rocket, the most powerful ever built by NASA, will attempt to send the capsule around the moon and back. Relatives of over 1 lakh victims of enforced disappearance in Mexico demanded on Tuesday that laws be enforced to enable more searches to be conducted. Families walked through Mexico City with photographs of their loved ones hanging from their chests. They demanded that the government comply with the recommendations presented in April by a UN committee on the issue. The US Justice Department said it uncovered efforts to obstruct its investigation into the discovery of classified documents at Donald Trump's Florida estate. It stated that government records were likely concealed and removed from a storage room even after the former president's representatives had assured officials that they had thoroughly searched the property. The FBI also seized 33 boxes containing over 100 classified records during its August 8th search of Mar-a-Lago and found 3 classified documents. Taiwan's defense ministry said on Wednesday that its armed forces will keep a close watch on China's military activities and adopt stronger countermeasures to respond to intrusions from Beijing. It comes after Taiwan's military said it fired live ammunition at drones from China flying over its outpost just off Chinese coastline on Tuesday. 12 Sri Lankan MPs belonging to the ruling coalition Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna joined the opposition. However, their departure is not expected to affect the stability of the President Wickremesinghe-led government. A day earlier, President Wickremesinghe appealed to all parties to join an all-party government to help Sri Lanka out of the unprecedented economic crisis. The last leader of Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, died on Wednesday at the age of 91. Gorbachev came into power in 1985 and was recognized for opening up the erstwhile USSR and for opening up communication lines with the West. But he was unable to prevent his country collapsing in 1991. A look at his life history.
Erstwhile Soviet Union leader Mikhail Gorbachev, who produced extraordinary reforms that ended the Cold War, has died at the age of 91, Russian media reported on Tuesday. Gorbachev, who was in power for less than 7 years, unleashed a breathtaking series of changes. But they quickly resulted in the collapse of authoritarian Soviet state, and Eastern European nations were freed from Russian domination and the end of decades of East-West nuclear confrontation. But many of the changes, including the Soviet breakup, bore no resemblance to the transformation that Gorbachev has envisioned when he became the Soviet leader in March 1985. Gorbachev's power was hopelessly sapped by an attempted coup against him in August 1991. He spent his last months in office watching republic after republic declared independence until he resigned on December 25, 1991. A quarter century after the collapse, Gorbachev said he had not considered using widespread force to try to keep the USSR together because he feared chaos in a nuclear country. Yet Gorbachev may have had a greater impact on the second half of the 20th century than any other political figure. Asked in later years if he would have undertaken the reform had he known their consequences, Gorbachev replied, "Yes, indeed, and with more persistence and determination." Gorbachev won the 1990 Nobel Peace Prize for ending the Cold War, yet he was widely despised at home. Russians blamed him for the 1991 implosion of the Soviet Union that was once fearsome superpower when territory spread into 15 separate nations. Gorbachev will be buried at Moscow's Novodevichy Cemetery next to his wife. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Now time for all the sporting action. India have set a target of 193 for Hong Kong in their final group match of the Asia Cup being played in Dubai. Virat Kohli scored 59 not out and Kumar Yadav was not out on 68 of just 26 balls. India's flamboyant all-rounder Hardik Pandya has jumped 8 places to a best-ever 5th position on the latest ICC T20 International all-rounder rankings after his excellent outing against Pakistan in the Asia Cup. Star Indian shutter Kitambi Srikanth registered a stunning straight game 22-20, 23-21 win over world number 4 Lee Zhizia of Malaysia in his first round match at the Japan Open Super 750 tournament. It was his first win over the Malaysian in 4 meetings. 2021 World Championships bronze medalist Lakshya Sen suffered a shock defeat in the opening round of the Japan Open. Sen squandered an opening game advantage to go down 21-18, 14-21, 13-21 to Japanese Kenta Nishimoto. London Olympics bronze medalist Saina Nehwal was no match for top seed Akane Yamaguchi of Japan in her first round match. Saina lost 9-21, 17-21 to the local favourite. Defending champion Emma Raducanu crashes out in the first round of the US Open Women's Singles. Alize Cornet beats Raducanu in straight sets 6-3, 6-3. Second seed Rafael Nadal overcame a slow start to beat Australian Rinky Hijikata in 4 sets 4-6, 6-2, 6-3, 6-3 to make it to the second round at the US Open being played in New York. That's all in news for the day. Keep watching Sansad Television for more updates. Good night.